teaching us not only the laws of the Torah, but the way of life, how we should live a better, more meaningful, more connected, more inspired, and more elevated life. What we talk about tonight, procrastination and overcoming procrastination. And that's why we need to have this joke, because I have a great joke about procrastination, but I'm going to tell it to you now. I am busy. So of course, this is a major issue in life, causes quite a bit of trouble. Let's see how our Mishnah, how our passage for tonight addresses it. So Rabbi Tarfon Omer, Rabbi Tarfon would say, the work is much. The workers are lazy, the reward is great, and the boss is urgent. So a lot of little points. The day is short, we're running out of time, but there's a lot of work to do. But the workers are lazy. On the other hand, the reward is great. There's a lot of reward that can be earned. And the boss is urging. So what does this all mean? How do we make sense of these short statements, and where do they all head? Well, it turns out that Rabbi Tarfon is addressing the typical issues, typical excuses that we give for procrastination. Now, of course, everyone has their own way and their own excuses, and there's always another one. But there are some major points that would apply to everyone that Rabbi Tarfon addresses in this statements. So let's have a look one by one. He starts off by saying that the day is short. That's the answer to the first excuse for procrastination, because people say, I have time, it isn't due till next week, we can do it later. Well, no, we don't have time. The day is short. In other words, life is short and there's so much to be done. The Talmud says a person should repent one day before he dies. Now, of course, nobody knows when they will die. And that means, in other words, make every day be that good day, because nobody knows what's coming next. Now, of course, we don't expect something terrible like death around the corner, but if anything, we've learned during these last few months, unexpected is to be expected. So the unexpected is coming up next. There isn't really a lot of time. The day is short. Do what has to be done because it's important. Now, the day is short, but the work is not short. The job is not short, because the Mishnah continues, the work is much. What does that mean, the work is much? There's so much work. Although the day is short, there's so much that can be accomplished. There's so much of meaning to achieve. God sent each soul to this world with a meaningful purpose. There's so much to do. It's not as if we just have to cover a little bit of this or a little bit of that, but hamalacha meruba, there is so much work to achieve, we have to do it. In fact, we are taught that God gives a person the amount of years and days and all the way to the minutes that are needed to accomplish what that soul needs to accomplish. We should be trying to do it all. So we don't finish the job. It isn't something that just takes up some of what we need to do. We're constantly trying to do a little bit more of the great things that we were sent here to accomplish. So although the day is short, time is short, there is a lot of work. There is much that needs to be done. And therefore, let's get to it. The next point the Mishnah makes is the workers are lazy. What does it mean the workers are lazy? Well, the workers are lazy means we say, I can do it later. Okay, the day is short, there's a lot to do, but there's enough time between now and the deadline for me to do it later. That means laziness. The workers are lazy because I can do it later is the very definition of laziness, the wasting of this particular day. So, yes, I can do it later, but then I will not have accomplished what this day is here to accomplish. In fact, time and the passage of days is the only thing probably that we cannot make up for. As a day goes away, it doesn't come back. We can try to catch up tomorrow, but tomorrow had its own good things we could accomplish. If we don't do today what today needs to be achieved, well, we can do it tomorrow, but then we're behind on what needs to be achieved tomorrow. So really, I can do it later is not an option. The laziness of hapayalim atzelim, of the workers are lazy, which means we waste a day because we can do the next day. That's not really an option because the next day has its own job and its own role. The Talmud actually says, drawing from the verse, that if man abandons God for a day, God abandons him for two. Now, what does that mean? Is God trying to get revenge and take an extra day and not only do what we did, but do twice as much? How is that fair? But actually, the understanding of that is that a fellow is going down the road and trying to catch up to someone, but the fellow is ahead of him, and the guy trying to catch up turns around and goes backwards, goes the wrong way for a day's travel. Well, now he's not a day behind. He's actually 2 days behind because the other guy kept on going for a day. So as we waste a day, the world moves on and we get even more behind than where we started. It's not only we didn't move, we actually fall behind, and while the time is passing, while the world is moving on. So I can do it later isn't an option. In fact, hapayalim atzelim, that would be the definition of laziness. So let's scratch that one. The next statement of the Mishnah is the reward is great. The reward is great. Of course, this means that the reward and the blessing that's achieved through the fulfillment of mitzvahs is great. There's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot that can possibly motivate us. But this also addresses another reason why people get lazy or procrastinate. And that often is that we feel like, what can I achieve anyhow? In such a big world, in such a dark world, what kind of difference can I make? So I'll do a little bit more or a little bit less. What does it really matter? It's a drop in the bucket. Of course, this is untrue, and this is what the Mishnah says. Hasachar harbe. There is a lot of reward. The reward is great. There is so much reward to be awarded that there is so much good to be achieved. There is so much that can be done, should be done, and must be done if only we would go ahead and do it. So no, we don't say, what difference can I make? If you couldn't make a difference, God wouldn't put you here. God wouldn't be bothered to create us, to create the circumstance, to create the opportunity if we couldn't make a difference. God didn't do it for nothing. So we can actually make a difference and we can actually achieve. And of course, it sometimes feels like there's an endless world, endless possibility, and so little of that we can achieve. What is that worth? Well, let's look at a little clip that might illustrate with a famous example how powerful the little bit we do can be, even though it's just a drop in the bucket of that big universe. All right, now how do we get this to play?
Excuse me, young man. What is it that you were doing?
Throwing starfish into the ocean.
I must ask, why are you throwing starfish into the ocean?
The sun is up and the tide is going down. If I don't throw them in, they'll die.
But young man, do you not realize there are miles and miles of beach and starfish along each mile? You can't possibly make a difference.
It made a difference for that one.
So, of course, it may feel like there are so many starfish, there's so much out there. What does the little bit I do make a difference? But the Mishnah says no. Hasachar harbe, there is so much that can be achieved within our space, within our world, within this one starfish that makes all the difference. Go for it and do what you can accomplish. Don't let the overwhelming rest of the story discourage you from doing the great things that you can do. We also need to remember what the Rebbe taught many times, that a little bit of light dispels a lot of darkness. We sometimes look around us, and there's so much darkness, there's so much negativity, there's so much of everything that's not okay. And it feels like the little bit of good that we do couldn't even matter against all that backdrop. But of course, that brings us back to our procrastination and laziness. Why bother? But that would be incorrect. Because a little bit of light, a candle, a small candle, a match, can light up an entire room. If the room is dark and you now lit the candle, the room is now changed from dark to light. It might just be a little bit, but that makes all the difference. It doesn't take a lot of light to get rid of a lot of darkness. Every little bit of light makes that change, makes that difference. So, yes, there's a lot of darkness, but a sachar harbe, the reward is great. There's a lot to be achieved by the bits of light that we keep on adding one at a time. And the final statement Rabbi Tarfon makes is, the boss is urging. The boss is urging. Who's the boss? Well, of course, in this context, that means that God is urging. And this addresses the final concern, the final excuse we might have, is that who cares anyway? Is God really interested? Does it really matter to him if I accomplish a little bit more or a little bit less? And the answer is, Baal Abai is doichik, the boss is urging, and he's saying, nu, as we would say in Yiddish, what's going on? Are you getting the job done? And of course, the boss only urges when it matters. The boss only gets on the case when it's important. He only urges because he cares. Because with the little bit that we achieve, which might feel like so little, is so meaningful to him. We see this in another passage, which is actually traditionally read before each chapter of Pirkei Avot, of this tractate of ethics of our fathers. And in this passage we read, every individual of Israel is share in the world to come. As is stated, your people are all righteous. They shall inherit the land forever. They are the shoot of my planting, the work of my hands, in which I take pride. So we tend to feel like maybe we don't belong. Maybe we don't have a share in the goodness that awaits us in the future, in the time of Mashiach, etc. But the Mishnah says no. Every Jew is righteous. Each of us are a plant of God, something that God has created, and something in which God takes pride. God is proud of the achievements of his child, of the individual in this world, choosing good over bad and doing one more good thing. The Talmud tells us how God points out to the angels, look at my children, look at the good they are doing, even though it seems that that's just a little bit of good in such a dark world, and just a little action by a small human being, totally dwarfed by these angels or heavenly concepts. Yet God takes pride in what that little child does. The analogy given for that is the excitement we might get when a young child, 11, 12, 13, 10 months old, takes a step, takes another few steps. As soon as a baby takes their first step, it's all over Facebook. Everyone's getting the message. The video clip is going around to all the family and friends. What's the big deal? The little baby took a step. The 10-year-old boy can take a lot more steps, walk a lot better, stronger, longer, faster. Why are we so excited? Because it's a big deal when the little baby takes the step. It makes the parent proud and happy. The angels or the great righteous people of the past might have been able to accomplish much greater things. But when we take our little step, when we do what we do, the little bit that we can, God is proud. So the boss is urging because the boss cares, because God says, this is meaningful, this is important, this matters, this makes a difference, and I'd like to see more and more of it. So no, we should not use as an excuse for procrastination and as an excuse for laziness, that what does it matter anyway? Who cares for it anyway? Who is paying attention anyway? Because God is paying attention, and it means very much to him. The Rebbe taught that on the coming of the Mashiach will actually personally thank every Jew, every individual, for the good that they have accomplished, for their participation in the world, in the mission of making the world a better place, even if that participation was incomplete, even if that participation was imperfect, even if we could have done more. God takes pride, and in fact, the Moshiach thanks us for the contribution that we did make. So in summation in this Mishnah, we have to remember these 5 points. There isn't a lot of time, the day is short, and there is much work to do. Don't be lazy, which would mean to waste a day, because tomorrow has got its own job. The reward is great. Yes, a lot is achieved, even if it feels like so very little. It makes all the difference for that one starfish. And the boss is urging, because the boss, who is God, cares very, very much for that little bit that we accomplish. Another thing to keep in mind is that elsewhere in Jewish thought and in Jewish teachings, you might find a different type of angle, a different presentation, a different tune, more of the terminology that God only expects as much as we can do, more of the terminology that it's okay, don't worry, don't be under so much pressure. Yet in this Mishnah, the Mishnah is there driving, motivating, the boss is urging, pushing to do more, to accomplish more, not to rest, not to slack off, not to suffice. And that's because the overall message of Pirkei Avos, the overall undercurrent in this whole tractate that we are studying, is what's called Midas Chasidus. Midas Chasidus means to do more, to do greater, to expect higher and more and greater than the minimum, more than what's required, to strive for greater heights. Midas Chasidus means to be a chassid, which is typically looked at as a Hasidic Jew, as a member of a Hasidic group. But the actual definition of a chassid is someone who does more than necessary, someone who does not suffice with the minimum. And that's really what this tractate is about, doing the greater, doing the more, expecting and achieving on a higher level. So yes, it's possible to get by with less, but our Mishnah says, if you want to be that chassid, that one who truly invests and truly achieves and does for God on a much higher and greater, to a much higher, greater extent, well, this is the way. Feel the motivation and the drive of so much that we can accomplish that we should keep trying to do a little more every time. So yes, you could get away with less, but we make the choice to use the Midas Chasidus, the tractate that's teaching us the teachings of the higher and greater, the teachings of let's accomplish even more and let's make this world a better place. So let's make that choice and let's not make do with the minimum. Let's not just get by, but let's give it all we've got. A word about our scheduling is that this is the 6th week of the Talmudic Wisdom for Life, which means that we have completed the tractate one time because we started from chapter 3 and we're back around to chapter 2. I do think, though, that we should continue on this theme each Thursday evening, and that's because we've been doing one passage out of each chapter, and there's so much more that we can learn. So please stick around with us in the coming Thursday evenings, same time, same Zoom link, same Facebook and YouTube channels. We'll be continuing to go through these chapters, reading additional passages and finding their message for life. Other than that, we have the Monday night class where we've concluded the series of positivity bias, but we are continuing with a different interesting topic each Monday. So please join us. And on Wednesdays, we have the women's class, which is now studying a new course, the In-Look Outlook, which examines the Rebbe's letters, the Rebbe's teachings to individuals on finding the positive in every situation in life. So I hope you can join us for these other classes. And meanwhile, have a good night